The massive crystalline doors of the Galactic Council chambers had never opened for a species from a Class 12 death world. Ambassador Kira Chen stepped through the threshold, her boots making soft sounds against the polished bioluminescent floor. The chamber fell silent as 3,000 representatives from across the galaxy turned to stare at the human woman who had just walked into their most sacred space. Security Chief Vextar's four eyes widened in horror as he processed what he was seeing. His clawed fingers flew across his communication device with desperate speed. Code 7. Code 7. Deathworlder in the main chamber. All units respond immediately. The emergency alert echoed through the station's corridors in 17 different languages. Security teams dropped whatever they were doing and rushed toward the council chambers. Some had never seen a human before, but they all knew the stories. Humans came from Earth, a planet so dangerous that most galactic species considered it uninhabitable. The gravity was crushing, the atmosphere was toxic to many races, and the wildlife was absolutely terrifying. Kira noticed the panic spreading through the chamber like ripples in a pond. Representatives were backing away from her, some climbing over each other in their haste to put distance between themselves and the human. She raised her hands in what she hoped was a peaceful gesture, but this only made things worse. Several delegates screamed and dove behind their floating platforms. "Please remain calm," Kira said in perfect galactic standard. Her voice carried easily through the chamber's acoustic systems. "I am Ambassador Kira Chun, representing the United Earth Alliance. I come in peace." The Zephyrian delegate, a tall being that looked like a walking tree made of silver, pointed a trembling branch at her. "That creature speaks. It has learned our language. This is worse than we thought." High Counselor Keth, an ancient being from the Alterian Empire, struggled to maintain his composure. His purple skin had turned a pale lavender, a clear sign of fear among his people. He had ruled the council for over 200 years, but nothing had prepared him for this moment. "Security teams are en route," he announced, his voice shaking slightly. "Please maintain order while we handle this situation." Kira looked around the chamber with genuine confusion. She had expected some resistance to humanity joining the galactic community, but this level of terror seemed completely out of proportion. Her briefing materials had mentioned that humans were considered unusual, but no one had prepared her for this reaction. The first security team burst through the side entrance, weapons drawn. They wore full environmental suits designed to protect them from hazardous atmospheres and dangerous creatures. The team leader, a reptilian saurian named Commander Thex, raised his plasma rifle and aimed it at Kira. "Deathworlder, stop where you are and surrender immediately." Thex's voice boomed through his suit speakers. "Any sudden movements will be considered hostile." More security teams flooded into the chamber from different entrances. Within seconds, Kira found herself surrounded by dozens of armed guards, all pointing their weapons at her. She slowly raised her hands higher, making sure to move very deliberately. "I surrender," she said clearly. "But I must point out that I am here as an official diplomatic representative. I have proper credentials and was invited to address this council." A nervous laugh escaped from someone in the gallery. The Carillion ambassador, a slug-like being with too many eyes, spoke up from behind his protective barrier. "Invited? Who in their right mind would invite a Deathworlder to the council?" High Counselor Keth checked his files with shaking hands. The holographic display showed official documents, all bearing the proper seals and signatures. His face grew even paler as he realized what had happened. "The invitation was sent by the diplomatic corps," he said weakly. "Apparently, there was some sort of miscommunication. They thought Earth was classified as a Class 4 garden world." The chamber erupted in chaos. Delegates began shouting in dozens of different languages, demanding explanations and pointing fingers at various officials. Some were calling for immediate evacuation, while others wanted the entire diplomatic corps investigated for incompetence. Commander Thex kept his weapon trained on Kira while speaking into his comm unit. "Command, we have a situation. The Deathworlder claims to have diplomatic immunity. Please advise." "Diplomatic immunity?" The voice from Central Command sounded incredulous. "Are you sure? Run her credentials through the system." While the security teams worked to verify her documents, Kira decided to try a different approach. She had studied galactic politics for months in preparation for this moment, and She knew that fear often came from ignorance. "May I ask why you're all so frightened?" she said politely. "I understand that Earth has a dangerous reputation, but humans are not naturally aggressive toward peaceful beings. We've come here seeking friendship and cooperation." The Viridian delegate, a small green creature that resembled a walking mushroom, peered at her from behind his platform. "Not aggressive? Your planet has gravity that would crush most of us. Your oceans are filled with monsters. Your very air burns our lungs. And your species fights constantly among themselves," added the crystalline representative, whose body chimed like bells when she spoke. "We have observed your planet for decades. You wage wars over the smallest disagreements." Kira nodded thoughtfully. "It's true that Earth can be challenging for other species. And, yes, humans have a history of conflict. But we've also learned to work together when it matters. That's why we're here. We want to be part of something bigger than ourselves." Security Chief Vextar appeared at Commander Thex's side, breathing heavily from his rapid response to the emergency. His scales were bright orange with stress, and his tail lashed nervously behind him. "Status report," he demanded. "The Deathworlder's credentials check out." Thex replied reluctantly. "She's listed as an official ambassador in the diplomatic registry. Central Command confirms that the invitation was legitimate, even if it was sent in error." Vextar stared at Kira with all four of his eyes. In his 30 years of security work, he had dealt with dangerous criminals, hostile aliens, and even a few rogue artificial intelligences. But this was his first Deathworlder, and everything about the situation felt wrong. "What's your name, Deathworlder?" he asked. "Ambassador Kira Chun," she replied calmly. "And what should I call you?" The fact that she was asking for his name like they were equals made Vextar even more nervous. In his experience, dangerous predators often tried to establish social connections before attacking. "Security Chief Vextar," he said curtly. "Now, what exactly are your intentions here?" Kira smiled, which caused half the security team to take a step backward. Among many species, showing teeth was considered a threat display. "I'm here to formally request Earth's admission to the Galactic Council," she said. "My government believes that humanity has much to offer the galactic community, and we hope to learn from the wisdom of older civilizations." High Counselor Keth had been listening to the exchange while frantically consulting with his advisors through private channels. The legal situation was becoming increasingly complicated. Under galactic law, any species that achieved faster-than-light travel and maintained peaceful intentions had the right to petition for council membership. The fact that humans came from a death world didn't technically disqualify them. "This is unprecedented," Keth announced to the chamber. "We need time to consider the proper procedures for handling this situation. I'm calling for an emergency recess." The Arctilian delegate, a ice-blue being that communicated through crystalline songs, raised a concerned melody. "But what do we do with the Deathworlder while we deliberate? We can't just leave her here." Several suggestions were shouted from around the chamber. Some wanted Kira placed in a containment cell, others suggested immediate deportation back to Earth. A few brave souls even suggested treating her like any other diplomatic visitor, though these voices were quickly shouted down. Commander Thex had been studying Kira carefully during the entire exchange. Something about her didn't match the horror stories he'd heard about Deathworlders. She seemed calm, rational, and genuinely interested in peaceful dialogue. Her body language suggested confidence, but not aggression. "Chief," he said quietly to Vextar, "she doesn't seem hostile. Maybe we're overreacting." Vextar's tail stopped lashing for a moment as he considered this. His security instincts were telling him that Kira was dangerous, but his logical mind had to admit that she hadn't actually done anything threatening. "Deathworlder abilities are unpredictable," he replied. "She could be planning something. We need to maintain full security protocols." While the security teams debated among themselves, Kira took the opportunity to observe her surroundings more carefully. The council chamber was truly magnificent, a testament to the engineering capabilities of galactic civilization. The walls seemed to be alive, shifting between different colors and patterns. The delegates' platforms floated at various heights, accommodating species with vastly different physical requirements. She noticed that some delegates were using translation devices, while others seemed to communicate through methods she couldn't understand. There were beings made of light, creatures that looked like living gemstones, things that defied easy description. Despite the current panic, she felt a sense of wonder at the diversity of intelligent life in the galaxy. Ambassador Chan, High Counselor Keth said formally, "While we appreciate your enthusiasm for joining our community, we must address several serious concerns. The safety protocols for this chamber were never designed to accommodate beings from Class 12 worlds." Kira looked confused. "What kind of safety protocols are you referring to? I'm not carrying any weapons or dangerous materials." The gaseous delegate, who existed as a controlled cloud of sentient vapor, pulsed with nervous energy. "It's not what you're carrying, Deathworlder. It's what you are. Your very presence here violates dozens of safety regulations." For example, added the Centaurian representative, whose horse-like body pranced nervously, "The gravity in this chamber is set to standard galactic normal, 0.7 Earth gravity. That gives you a significant physical advantage over most species here." Another voice chimed in. "And your reaction time. Deathworlders are known to move faster than our security systems can track." Kira was beginning to understand the scope of the problem. To these beings, she wasn't just a diplomat from another world. She was essentially a superhuman predator walking into a room full of prey animals. "I see the concern," she said carefully. "But surely we can work together to find a solution. Humans have lived peacefully with other species before." "When?" demanded the Trilithian delegate, a rock-like being whose voice sounded like grinding stones. Kira paused, realizing that Earth's history with dolphins, whales, and other intelligent species wasn't exactly what they were looking for. We're still learning how to do that properly," she admitted. "But we're committed to the process." Security Chief Vextar had been receiving updates from his teams throughout the station. "Central Command wants to know if we should activate the emergency containment protocols," he reported. "What exactly are emergency containment protocols?" Kira asked. The chamber fell silent. Even the security teams looked uncomfortable with the question. Commander Thex shifted nervously. "They're designed for extremely dangerous situations. Hostile Deathworlder incursions, rogue AI outbreaks, that sort of thing." "I see," Kira said quietly. "And these protocols would involve force fields, paralysis beams, emergency atmosphere venting." Vextar listed matter-of-factly. "Standard procedures for containing threats that conventional weapons can't handle." The casual way he described potentially lethal countermeasures made several delegates shift uncomfortably. Some were beginning to realize that their fear might be leading them toward actions that violated their own principles. The empathic delegate, a being whose emotions could be felt by others nearby, suddenly projected waves of guilt and shame throughout the chamber. Many species found themselves questioning their reactions for the first time. "Perhaps," the empathic said in a voice like musical chimes, "we should consider that our fear may be causing us to behave in ways that contradict our values." High Counselor Keth felt the emotional projection and found himself reconsidering the situation. The Galactic Council prided itself on being a forum for peaceful dialogue between species. They had successfully mediated conflicts between civilizations with vastly different biologies, cultures, and value systems. Was it possible that they were letting prejudice cloud their judgment? "Ambassador Chun," he said slowly, "would you be willing to undergo a voluntary security screening? Nothing invasive, just basic scans to verify that you pose no immediate threat." Kira nodded immediately. "Of course. I want everyone here to feel safe." The willingness to submit to security screening caught many delegates by surprise. In their experience, truly dangerous beings typically refused such measures or tried to negotiate conditions. Commander Thex activated his scanner and began running it over Kira from a safe distance. The readings were unlike anything he had ever seen before. "Bone density is off the charts," he reported. "Muscle mass significantly higher than galactic average. Cardiovascular efficiency, this can't be right." "What is it?" Vextar demanded. According to these readings, her heart could pump blood efficiently even in 3 times standard gravity. "And her lung capacity." Thex paused, double-checking his instruments. "She could survive in atmospheric conditions that would kill most of us in minutes." The security data only reinforced everyone's fears about Deathworlders. But Kira seized on the opportunity to explain. "Those adaptations aren't for fighting," she said earnestly. "They're for surviving on Earth. Our planet has extreme weather, dangerous wildlife, and challenging environmental conditions. We evolved to be resilient, not aggressive. The same adaptations that help you survive on a death world would make you incredibly dangerous in combat, the military advisor pointed out. He was a veteran Korthak warrior, and he recognized the signs of a formidable opponent. That's true, Kira admitted. But humans have learned to use our abilities for construction, exploration, and helping others. We've built cities, explored dangerous regions of our planet to help other species, and used our strength to rescue those in need. The nurturing delegate, whose species was known for their pacifist philosophy, leaned forward with interest. Can you give us examples? Kira's face lit up as she began describing human rescue operations, space exploration missions, and conservation efforts. She talked about firefighters running into burning buildings, search and rescue teams working in extreme conditions, and scientists venturing into dangerous environments to study and protect wildlife. As she spoke, some delegates began to see humans in a different light. Instead of viewing their physical capabilities as purely threatening, they started to understand how those same traits could be used for positive purposes. But not everyone was convinced. The pacifist coalition representative raised a tentacle in objection. Even if individual humans can control their aggressive impulses, your species as a whole has a documented history of violence. How can we trust that diplomatic relations won't eventually lead to conflict? It was a fair question, and Kira had been preparing for it throughout her journey to the council station. You're right that humanity has a violent past, she said. We've fought terrible wars and made serious mistakes. But we've also learned from those experiences. The United Earth Alliance was formed specifically to prevent future conflicts and to represent our species' better nature on the galactic stage. How do we know this alliance truly represents your species? Asked the skeptical delegate, whose species had been burned by false promises before. You're welcome to visit Earth and see for yourself, Kira replied. We believe in transparency. Our government records are open to inspection, and we'd be happy to host galactic observers. The offer to allow inspections was another surprise. Most species jealously guarded their homeworlds, especially from outside observation. Security Chief Vextar was finding himself increasingly confused by the human ambassador. Everything about her behavior contradicted what he had been taught to expect from Deathworlders. She was cooperative, transparent, and seemed genuinely interested in peaceful coexistence. Command, he spoke into his comm unit, requesting guidance. The situation is not developing as anticipated. The voice from Central Command was equally puzzled. Explain. The Deathworlder is exhibiting non-hostile behavior patterns. She's submitted to security screening, offered to allow inspections of her homeworld, and has shown no signs of aggression despite being surrounded by armed security teams. There was a long pause from Central Command. That does not match the profile for Deathworlder species. I know, sir. What are your orders? Another pause. Maintain current security posture, but do not escalate unless she demonstrates hostile intent. We're sending additional specialists to assist with the evaluation. While Vextar received his orders, High Counselor Keth was consulting with the Council's legal experts. The situation was unprecedented, and there were no clear guidelines for handling it. The legal precedent is actually quite clear, the Chief Legal Advisor informed him through a private channel. Any species that achieves faster-than-light travel and demonstrates peaceful intentions has the right to petition for membership. The classification of their homeworld is not mentioned as a disqualifying factor. But surely the founders never anticipated a situation like this, Keth protested. Perhaps not, but the law is the law. We cannot simply ignore it because we find the applicant species unsettling. Keth looked out at the chamber, where delegates were still huddled behind their platforms, while security teams maintained their positions around the human ambassador. The entire situation felt surreal. What's the minimum legal requirement for processing their petition? He asked. They must be allowed to present their formal request to the full council, the legal advisor replied. After that, the matter goes to committee for evaluation, which can take anywhere from months to years. And during that time, standard diplomatic protocols apply. They would be entitled to observer status and basic diplomatic courtesies. The thought of a Deathworlder having regular access to the council station made Keth feel physically ill. But if the law required it. Meanwhile, Kira was having her own conversation with Commander Thex, who seemed to be the most reasonable member of the security team. "Can I ask you something?" she said quietly. Thex nodded cautiously. "What exactly do you think I'm going to do? I mean, even if I wanted to cause trouble, I'm one person surrounded by thousands of beings and dozens of armed guards. What possible threat could I pose?" It was a logical question, and Thex found himself without a good answer. His training had emphasized the dangers of Deathworlders, but it hadn't really explained what those dangers were in practical terms. "You could take hostages," he said finally. "Use your superior physical abilities to overpower delegates and make demands." "But why would I want to do that?" Kira asked. "I came here hoping to build positive relationships with other species. Taking hostages would accomplish the exact opposite of my goals." "Maybe it's a long-term strategy," Thex suggested, but even as he said it, the explanation sounded weak. "Commander," Kira said gently, "I think you're operating on assumptions about my species that may not be accurate. Yes, humans are physically capable, but that doesn't make us inherently hostile. Most of us just want to live peacefully and explore the universe." Before Thex could respond, a new commotion erupted near one of the side entrances. A group of beings in elaborate robes were approaching, led by an ancient creature that seemed to float rather than walk. "The Council of Elders," someone whispered. The Council of Elders consisted of the oldest and most respected beings in galactic civilization. They rarely appeared in person, preferring to observe proceedings remotely from their various homeworlds. Their presence here meant that the situation had escalated to the highest possible levels. Elder Zwayaxthala, a being so old that her species had evolved significantly since her birth, drifted toward the center of the chamber. Reality seemed to bend slightly around her, a side effect of her people's advanced mental abilities. "We have come," she announced, her voice echoing strangely in everyone's minds, "to witness this historic moment." "Historic?" High Counselor Keth asked nervously. "The first contact between galactic civilization and a Class 12 Deathworld species," Elder Zwayaxthala replied. "This day will be remembered for millennia, regardless of the outcome." Her words sent chills through the assembled delegates. Some interpreted them as a promise of future cooperation, while others heard them as a warning of impending disaster. Kira felt the weight of history settling on her shoulders. She had known that this moment was important, but she was beginning to understand just how significant it truly was. The future relationship between humanity and the rest of the galaxy might depend on what happened in the next few hours. "Ambassador Chun," Elder Zwayaxthala addressed her directly. "You have caused quite a stir in our normally peaceful chambers." "I apologize for the disruption, Elder," Kira replied respectfully. "That was never my intention. No apology is necessary. Growth often requires discomfort. The question now is whether this discomfort will lead to wisdom or to fear." The Elder's cryptic words hung in the air as delegates waited to see what would happen next. Security teams remained in position, but there was a subtle shift in the atmosphere. The presence of the Elders seemed to remind everyone that they were part of something larger than their individual fears. As Kira looked around the chamber at the thousands of beings watching her every move, she realized that this was just the beginning. Whatever happened here today would set the tone for humanity's entire relationship with galactic civilization. The timer on the chamber's central display showed that only 10 minutes had passed since she first walked through those crystalline doors. 10 minutes that had already changed everything. Elder Zwayaxthala's presence changed everything in the council chamber. The ancient being's reputation preceded her. She had witnessed the rise and fall of civilizations, had helped negotiate peace treaties between species so different they couldn't even perceive each other properly, and had guided the galaxy through its darkest moments. When she spoke, even the most powerful delegates listened. "Commander Thex," the Elder addressed the security team leader, "lower your weapons. This being poses no immediate threat to anyone in this chamber." Thex hesitated, looking between the Elder and his security chief. "Ma'am, protocol requires..." "Protocol," Elder Zwayaxthala interrupted gently, "is a tool for normal circumstances. This is far from normal. Her mental voice carried an undertone of authority that made further argument impossible. Reluctantly, Thex signaled his team to lower their weapons. The plasma rifles and energy weapons were pointed toward the floor, though the security teams remained ready to respond at a moment's notice. Kira felt some of the tension leave her shoulders as the immediate threat of being shot diminished. She bowed respectfully to the elder. "Thank you for your intervention. I hope we can resolve this situation peacefully." "Peace," the elder mused, "is not the absence of conflict, young human. It is the ability to find common ground despite our differences. The question before us today is whether such common ground exists between your species and ours." High Counselor Keth stepped forward nervously. "Elder, with all due respect, we haven't had time to properly evaluate the risks involved in accepting a petition from a Deathworld species. The safety implications alone, safety is important," Elder Zywixthala acknowledged, "but so is progress. The galaxy has grown stagnant in recent centuries. Perhaps we need the perspective of a species that has learned to thrive in conditions we would consider impossible." The chamber buzzed with nervous conversation as delegates processed the elder's words. Some were shocked that she would even consider the possibility of human membership in the council. Others were intrigued by the idea that Deathworlders might bring something valuable to galactic civilization. The cautious delegate, a crystalline being whose body chimed with worry, spoke up. "But, Elder, the physical advantages alone make them dangerous. Look at the security readings. Bone density 3 times galactic standard, muscle fibers designed for extreme gravity, reaction times that exceed our measurement capabilities." "And yet," Elder Zywixthala replied, "she stands here surrounded by armed guards and has made no aggressive moves. Perhaps we should judge actions rather than capabilities." Kira seized the opportunity to speak. "Elder, if I may address the Council's concerns directly?" "Proceed, Ambassador Chun." Kira took a deep breath and looked around the chamber at the thousands of eyes watching her. "I understand your fear. Truly I do. From your perspective, I must seem like a monster from your worst nightmares. But fear based on assumptions rather than facts can lead to tragic misunderstandings." She gestured to herself with slow, deliberate movements. "Yes, humans are physically stronger than most galactic species. Yes, we come from a dangerous world that has shaped us into survivors. But these same traits that frighten you are also what make us valuable allies." The skeptical delegate leaned forward. "Explain how being dangerous makes you valuable. When the Korvax plague threatened to wipe out 3 systems, who do you think could have delivered medical supplies through the contaminated zones?" Kira asked. "When the solar storms in the Rigel sector made normal rescue operations impossible, who could have survived the radiation long enough to evacuate civilians?" She paused, letting the implications sink in. "Humans aren't just strong, we're resilient. We can go places and do things that would kill other species. Instead of seeing us as threats, perhaps you could see us as potential rescue workers, explorers, and protectors." The nurturing delegate's expression softened visibly. "You're suggesting that your dangerous traits could be used to help others?" "That's exactly what I'm suggesting," Kira replied. "On Earth, our strongest people often become firefighters, rescue workers, and emergency responders. We use our abilities to save lives, not take them." Security Chief Vextar had been listening intently to the exchange. Despite his initial panic, he was beginning to see the human's point. His security teams regularly handled dangerous situations that other species couldn't manage. If Deathworlders were even more capable in extreme conditions. "Ambassador," he said carefully, "hypothetically speaking, if there was an emergency situation requiring immediate response in a hazardous environment, what kind of assistance could your species provide?" Kira's eyes lit up. "We could deploy rescue teams in conditions that would incapacitate other species. We could establish forward operating bases in extreme environments. We could evacuate populations from disaster zones that normal ships can't reach safely." "And the cost for such assistance would be what?" asked the economic delegate, whose species was notorious for their focus on trade and profit. "Friendship," Kira said simply. "We want to be part of the galactic community. We want to learn from older civilizations and contribute our own knowledge and abilities. We're not looking for special treatment or exclusive deals, just the chance to prove ourselves as worthy allies. Elder Zuayxthala's ancient features showed what might have been approval. An interesting proposal. But words are easy to speak and difficult to fulfill. How can we trust that your species will honor such commitments? Before Kira could answer, a new alarm began sounding throughout the station. The emergency tone was different from the earlier security alert. This was a distress call. The station administrator, a multi-armed being capable of processing dozens of communication channels simultaneously, appeared on the chamber's main display. Emergency situation developing in Sector 7. Reactor containment failure on the Belkin transport vessel, Harmony's Dream. Ship is losing structural integrity and unable to evacuate its passenger compartments. The display showed a detailed schematic of the crisis. The transport ship was carrying over 2,000 civilians from various species, including many who required specialized life support systems. The reactor failure had damaged the ship's evacuation systems, trapping most of the passengers in compartments that were rapidly becoming uninhabitable. Standard rescue protocols are inadequate, the administrator continued. The radiation levels and structural instability make it impossible for our rescue teams to reach the trapped passengers. Estimated time until total containment failure, 43 minutes. A horrified silence fell over the council chamber as delegates realized they were about to witness a massive loss of life. The rescue ships in the area were simply not equipped to handle a situation this dangerous. High Counselor Keth activated his communication systems, frantically trying to coordinate a response. Can we reroute any military vessels to assist? Negative, came the reply from Fleet Command. Nearest military ships are 6 hours away, and even our most heavily shielded vessels can't safely operate in those radiation levels for the time required. Kira watched the tactical display with growing alarm. She could see exactly what the problem was. The rescue operation required someone to physically enter the damaged ship and manually activate the emergency systems from inside. But the radiation and structural damage made it a suicide mission for any normal galactic species. Ambassador, Elder Zuayxthala said quietly, I believe this is what humans call an opportunity to prove oneself. All eyes turned to Kira as the implications became clear. Here was a situation that perfectly demonstrated her earlier claims about human resilience and usefulness. But it was also incredibly dangerous, even by human standards. What would such a rescue operation require? Kira asked, her mind already racing through possibilities. The station administrator updated the display with detailed technical specifications. Manual activation of the emergency evacuation systems from inside the ship. Estimated radiation exposure would be fatal to all known galactic species within 5 minutes. Structural instability makes the operation extremely hazardous even for properly equipped teams. And Earth's nearest ship? Kira inquired. The UEA vessel Resilience is 12 minutes away, Commander Thex reported, checking his tactical displays. They responded to our distress call, but were told to maintain a safe distance. Kira activated her personal communicator. Resilience, this is Ambassador Chun. Please respond. Captain Zhang's voice crackled through the chamber speakers. Ambassador, we've been monitoring the situation. The radiation levels are beyond anything we've trained for. This would be extremely dangerous even for us. But possible? Kira pressed. A pause. Yes, ma'am. With proper equipment and quick extraction, our people could survive long enough to complete the mission. But the political implications. Every delegate in the chamber was holding their breath. They were witnessing a moment that would define humanity's relationship with the galaxy, either as valued allies willing to risk their lives for strangers, or as reckless dangers who couldn't be trusted with sensitive operations. The decision is mine to make, Kira said firmly. Captain, prepare your rescue team. I'm authorizing an emergency humanitarian operation. Belay that order, High Counselor Keth shouted. This council has not authorized human ships to operate in our space. Elder Zuayxthala's voice cut through the argument like a blade. Counselor Keth, 2,000 innocent lives hang in the balance. Are you truly going to let them die because of paperwork? The moral weight of the situation was crushing. Everyone in the chamber knew that normal rescue protocols had failed. The only option left was to trust the Deathworlders to do what no one else could. Security Chief Vextar stepped forward. Elder, If we allow this operation, we'll need to coordinate closely with the human vessel to ensure they don't inadvertently cause additional damage. Agreed, Elder Zyaxthala replied. Commander Thex, you will serve as liaison with the human rescue team. Thex looked shocked. Ma'am, I don't have experience working with Deathworlders. Then, you're about to get some, the elder said with what might have been amusement. Consider it an educational opportunity. On the main display, the situation aboard the Harmony's Dream was deteriorating rapidly. Emergency bulkheads were failing, and whole sections of the ship were becoming uninhabitable. Time was running out. Captain Zhang, Kira said into her communicator, you are authorized to proceed with the rescue operation. Coordinate with station security for approach vectors and target priorities. Understood, Ambassador. Rescue Team Alpha is suiting up now. Estimated time to target, 8 minutes. The chamber watched in tense silence as the human rescue ship appeared on the tactical display, accelerating toward the damaged transport at speeds that made several delegates gasp. The acceleration forces alone would have killed most galactic species, but the humans seemed to handle them effortlessly. They're really going to do it, someone whispered. Of course they are, replied another voice. They're Deathworlders. Impossible missions are probably routine for them. Commander Thex found himself in the strange position of coordinating a rescue operation with beings he had been prepared to shoot just minutes earlier. Resilience. This is station security. We're transmitting detailed schematics of the target vessel and priority evacuation zones. Received and acknowledged, came the reply from the human ship. Our team is equipped with radiation suits rated for extreme exposure. We'll have approximately 7 minutes of operational time once we're aboard. 7 minutes to save 2,000 lives. The mathematics were daunting, but the humans seemed confident they could make it work. The empathic delegate was broadcasting waves of hope and determination throughout the chamber. Many species found their own emotions shifting from fear and suspicion to admiration and gratitude. Look at them, the nurturing delegate said softly. They're risking their lives for people they've never met, from species they've just encountered. It could be a trick, the paranoid delegate muttered. Maybe they're trying to gain our trust so they can betray us later. To what end? Elder Zyaxthala asked. If they wanted to harm us, surely there are easier ways than staging an elaborate rescue operation. On the display, the human rescue ship had reached the damaged transport. The operation began immediately, with human rescue workers in heavy radiation suits forcing their way through damaged airlocks and collapsed corridors. Team Alpha to Resilience, came the voice of the rescue team leader. We're inside. Radiation levels are extreme, but manageable. Beginning evacuation procedures now. The efficiency of the human rescue operation was remarkable to watch. They moved through the ship with a combination of careful planning and decisive action that impressed even the most skeptical delegates. Within 3 minutes, they had restored power to the emergency systems and begun evacuating the most vulnerable passengers. How are they moving so fast? The amazed delegate asked. Deathworlder physiology, Commander Thex explained, his own admiration evident. What looks like extreme speed to us is probably normal operating pace for them. Team Alpha to Station Control, the rescue leader reported. First group of evacuees is ready for transport. We need immediate medical support. Several passengers are suffering from radiation exposure. The medical teams sprang into action, preparing to receive the wounded. But there was a problem. The medical bay was designed for standard galactic species. Human rescue workers were about to deliver patients whose physiology was unfamiliar to the station's doctors. We have medical data on most galactic species, Kira offered. Our rescue team can provide immediate first aid and coordinate with your medical staff. It was another moment of trust. The station's medical chief would have to allow Deathworlders into his medical bay, working alongside his staff to treat patients whose lives hung in the balance. Agreed, the medical chief said after only a moment's hesitation. All available personnel to Medical Bay 7. Prepare for mass casualty intake. The rescue operation continued with clockwork precision. The human team systematically worked through the ship, evacuating passengers and stabilizing critical systems. Their radiation suits were beginning to show dangerous exposure levels, but they pressed on. Team Alpha, you're approaching maximum safe exposure. Captain Zhang warned from the resilience. Acknowledged, came the reply. 2 more compartments, and we're done. We can handle the exposure. The casual way they discussed potentially lethal radiation doses made several delegates shudder. These beings really were from another world. Final evacuation group coming out now, the rescue leader reported. All passengers accounted for. Recommend immediate withdrawal. This ship won't hold together much longer. The human rescue team emerged from the dying transport just as another section of the hull gave way. They had cut their timing so close that some delegates had to cover their eyes, unable to watch what they thought would be a disaster. But the humans made it out safely, their rescue ship pulling away just as the transport's reactor finally gave up completely. The explosion lit up the tactical display, but all the passengers were already safe aboard rescue vessels. The council chamber erupted in applause, something that hadn't happened in living memory. Delegates who had been cowering in fear just minutes earlier were now cheering for the Deathworlders who had risked everything to save strangers. Final count, the station administrator announced. 2,037 passengers successfully evacuated. 0 casualties. The rescue operation is a complete success. Elder Zuaxthala looked at Kira with newfound respect. Ambassador Chun, your people have just demonstrated exactly what the galaxy needs from Deathworlders. Not conquest or domination, but courage and selflessness in the face of impossible odds. High Counselor Keth was struggling to process what he had just witnessed. Everything he thought he knew about Deathworlders had been turned upside down in the space of an hour. The rescue teams are requesting permission to dock, Commander Thex reported. They have wounded passengers who need immediate medical attention. Granted, Keth said automatically. Full medical support authorized. As the human rescue ship approached the station, delegates watched through the observation ports with curiosity instead of fear. These Deathworlders had just saved thousands of lives. How could they be the same dangerous predators from the stories? Ambassador, the grateful delegate said, her voice thick with emotion, my granddaughter was aboard that transport. How can we ever repay this debt? Kira smiled gently. No debt is necessary. This is what neighbors do for each other. We hope that someday, when humans are in trouble, the galaxy will be willing to help us too. The simple humanity of her response struck home with many delegates. Here was a being capable of incredible physical feats, from a world so dangerous that most species couldn't survive there, asking for nothing more than friendship and mutual support. Security Chief Vextar found his entire worldview shifting. He had spent his career preparing for threats and dangers, but he was beginning to realize that strength didn't automatically equal hostility. Commander Thex, he said quietly, coordinate with the human medical teams. Full cooperation on all assistance to the survivors. Yes, sir, Thex replied. He paused, then added, Sir, I think we may have misjudged these people. I think, Vextar said slowly, we may have misjudged a great many things. As the rescued passengers were brought aboard the station, the chamber's mood continued to evolve. Instead of fear and suspicion, there was growing curiosity about these remarkable beings from Earth. The young delegate, whose species was known for their enthusiasm and optimism, raised a tentacle excitedly. Ambassador Chen, could you tell us more about Earth? What's it like to live on a death world? For the first time since arriving at the station, Kira felt like she was having a normal diplomatic conversation. Earth is challenging, but it's also incredibly beautiful. We have vast oceans, towering mountains, dense forests filled with amazing creatures. Amazing and dangerous creatures, the cautious delegate interjected, but without the earlier fear. Some are dangerous, yes, Kira acknowledged. But many are gentle and fascinating. We share our world with whales that sing across the oceans, birds that migrate thousands of miles guided only by instinct, and countless other species that have taught us about cooperation, patience, and the importance of protecting our environment. The ecological delegate perked up with interest. You've learned environmental protection from your planet's wildlife? We've had to, Kira replied sadly. We've made mistakes, serious ones that taught us the hard way about the interconnectedness of all life. But we've also learned to be better stewards of our world. Elder Zuaxthala had been listening with growing approval. The mark of wisdom is learning from one's mistakes. Tell me, Ambassador, What has humanity learned from its errors? Kira considered the question carefully. We've learned that strength without wisdom leads to destruction. We've learned that differences should be celebrated rather than feared. Most importantly, we've learned that cooperation achieves more than competition. And yet your species still engages in warfare, the pacifist delegate pointed out. Less than we used to, Kira replied honestly. The United Earth Alliance was formed specifically to prevent conflicts between human nations. We're not perfect, but we're trying to be better. The honesty of her admission resonated with many delegates. Every species in the galaxy had its own history of conflict and growth. The humans' willingness to acknowledge their flaws while striving for improvement was actually reassuring. The rescue teams have successfully transferred all passengers, the station administrator reported. Medical teams report that the human first aid procedures were highly effective. Several passengers owe their lives to the immediate care they received from the Deathworlder rescue workers. Commander Thex had been working closely with the human medical teams and was impressed by their professionalism and expertise. Ambassador, your people know a remarkable amount about xenobiology for a species that's new to galactic civilization. Kira looked pleased. We've been studying your public databases for months, preparing for this moment. We wanted to be ready to help if the opportunity arose. You studied our medical procedures in preparation for rescue operations? The medical delegate asked with surprise. We studied everything we could find, Kira replied. History, culture, biology, technology. We wanted to understand the galaxy we hoped to join. The level of preparation and genuine interest in galactic civilization impressed even the most skeptical delegates. These weren't conquerors looking for weaknesses to exploit. They were students eager to learn and contribute. Ambassador Chun, Elder Xiaxthala said formally, I believe it's time to address the original purpose of your visit. You came here to petition for Earth's admission to the Galactic Council. The chamber fell silent as everyone remembered why they were here. The dramatic rescue had temporarily overshadowed the political implications, but now the real work would begin. Yes, Elder, Kira replied. Humanity requests the honor of joining the galactic community as a contributing member species. In light of recent events, Elder Xiaxthala continued, I believe the Council is prepared to consider your petition with the seriousness it deserves. However, there will be conditions and requirements that must be met. Kira nodded. We're prepared to meet any reasonable requirements for membership. The first requirement, High Counselor Keth announced, his voice steadier now, is a full cultural and technological exchange. We need to understand your species, your capabilities, and your intentions. Agreed, Kira said immediately. The second requirement is a trial period of cooperative operations. You've demonstrated rescue capabilities today, but we need to see how your species works with others over time. Also agreed. The third requirement. Keth paused, looking around the chamber at his fellow delegates. The third requirement is that you help us revise our safety protocols and emergency response procedures. Today has shown us that our current systems are inadequate for certain types of crises. The request to help improve galactic emergency response was unexpected but logical. If Deathworlders could handle situations that normal species couldn't, their expertise would be invaluable for future disasters. Humanity would be honored to assist with emergency response improvements, Kira replied. Elder Xiaxthala looked satisfied. Then, it seems we have the foundation for a productive relationship. Ambassador Chun, your petition will be forwarded to the appropriate committees for formal review. In the meantime, Earth will be granted provisional observer status, allowing for limited participation in council activities. The chamber buzzed with quiet conversation as delegates processed the dramatic turn of events. What had started as a security crisis had become the beginning of a new chapter in galactic history. There is one more matter, the Elder added. The story of today's events will spread throughout the galaxy. How humanity's first contact with the Council is remembered will depend on how we tell that story. She looked directly at Kira. I suggest we tell it as the day the galaxy learned that strength and compassion are not mutually exclusive, and that sometimes the most feared among us can become the most valued. As applause filled the chamber once more, Kira felt a profound sense of hope. The journey ahead would be long and challenging, but humanity had taken its first step toward joining the vast community of intelligent life among the stars. 3 weeks had passed since Ambassador Kira Chun first walked into the Galactic Council chambers, and the station had become a very different place. Where once there had been panic and fear, now there was curiosity and cautious optimism. The human rescue operation had spread throughout galactic networks, becoming the most watched news story in recent memory. Kira stood in her newly assigned quarters, reviewing reports from Earth about the diplomatic progress. The provisional observer status had opened doors that humanity had only dreamed of accessing. Technical exchanges were already underway, medical knowledge was being shared, and the first joint training exercises between human and galactic rescue teams were being planned. But not everyone was pleased with these developments. The emergency session call came through her communicator at dawn, station time. Elder Zuayexthala's mental voice carried an urgency that immediately put Kira on alert. Ambassador, your presence is required in the council chambers immediately. We have a situation. Kira dressed quickly and made her way through the station corridors. 3 weeks of regular presence had made her a familiar sight to the station's inhabitants, though she still drew stares from newcomers. The fear had largely faded, replaced by respectful curiosity and, in some cases, genuine admiration. Commander Thex was waiting for her outside the council chambers. His scales had shifted to a more neutral blue-green, a sign that he was no longer in constant stress mode around her. What's the situation, Commander? Kira asked. We've received a formal complaint from the Sovereignty Coalition, Thex replied grimly. They're demanding an immediate review of humanity's observer status. The Sovereignty Coalition was a group of older, more conservative species that had dominated galactic politics for centuries. They viewed themselves as the guardians of traditional galactic civilization and were deeply suspicious of any changes to the established order. As Kira entered the chamber, she could see the tension immediately. The usual mixed seating arrangement had polarized, with coalition supporters on one side and those more favorable to human participation on the other. The center section, normally occupied by neutral delegates, was nearly empty. Elder Zuayexthala floated at her usual position, but Kira noticed additional elders present today, a sign that this session carried significant weight for the galaxy's future. Ambassador Chan, High Counselor Keth announced formally, you stand before this council to address serious concerns raised by the Sovereignty Coalition regarding humanity's provisional status. The coalition's primary representative, Grand Admiral Vorthak of the Imperial Navy, stood to address the chamber. His species was one of the galaxy's most militarily advanced, with a history of conquest that had only recently been tempered by council oversight. Honored delegates, Vorthak began, his voice carrying the authority of someone accustomed to command. We have gathered today to address a fundamental threat to galactic security and stability. His words sent murmurs through the chamber. Calling humanity a fundamental threat was serious diplomatic language. 3 weeks ago, Vorthak continued, this council made a hasty decision to grant observer status to a species from a Class 12 death world. This decision was made in the emotional aftermath of a rescue operation, without proper consideration of the long-term implications. Kira felt her heart sinking. She had hoped that the successful rescue would prove humanity's peaceful intentions, but it seemed some viewed it as evidence of human capabilities they found threatening. The rescue operation in question, Vorthak said, activating a holographic display, demonstrates exactly why Deathworlders pose an unacceptable risk to galactic civilization. The display showed technical analyses of the human rescue operation, breaking down every aspect of their performance. Reaction times, radiation tolerance, physical capabilities, tactical coordination, everything was presented as evidence of dangerous military potential. Observe these reaction speeds. Vorthak pointed to the data. Human rescue workers moved through a failing spacecraft at velocities that our security systems couldn't track properly. They operated in radiation levels that would kill most species in minutes. Not just survived, but remained fully functional. He switched to another section of the analysis. Their tactical coordination was flawless. They communicated in encrypted channels, moved in formation patterns that mirror military assault tactics, and demonstrated a level of operational efficiency that can only come from extensive combat training. The implications were clear. Vorthak was suggesting that the rescue operation had been a demonstration of military capabilities disguised as humanitarian action. Furthermore, he continued, their willingness to operate in lethal conditions suggests a disregard for personal safety that borders on fanaticism. Such beings cannot be reasoned with or controlled through normal diplomatic channels. Kira listened to the accusations with growing alarm. Every positive aspect of human performance was being reframed as evidence of threat. Their courage became fanaticism. Their competence became dangerous capability. Their success became proof of hidden military objectives. The cautious delegate, who had become somewhat supportive of human participation, now looked troubled. Grand Admiral, are you suggesting that the rescue operation was some form of military demonstration? I'm suggesting, Vorthak replied smoothly, that it revealed capabilities that make Deathworlders fundamentally incompatible with peaceful galactic civilization. We cannot allow beings with such abilities to gain access to our technology, our trade routes, or our strategic information. Elder Zuayxthala's mental voice cut through the growing tension. Grand Admiral, you speak of capabilities as though they automatically determine intentions. By that logic, your own species' military strength should disqualify you from Council participation. The Imperial Navy serves the cause of galactic order, Vorthak replied stiffly. Our capabilities are established, understood, and regulated by centuries of treaty and tradition. Deathworlders represent an unknown variable that could destabilize everything we have built. The military delegate from a normally neutral species spoke up. Grand Admiral, while your concerns about unknown capabilities are valid, the humans have submitted to extensive security screening and have been transparent about their intentions. Transparency can be fabricated, Vorthak countered, and their so-called peaceful intentions could change at any moment. What happens when human population pressures require new territory? What happens when their resource needs exceed what their death world can provide? Their capabilities make them a potential threat to every species in the galaxy. The fear that Kira had hoped was fading began to resurface among some delegates. Vorthak was skilled at presenting logical-sounding arguments that played on their deepest anxieties about Deathworlders. If I may respond to these concerns, Kira said, standing to address the chamber. The accused may speak, High Counselor Keth announced formally. The phrasing stung. 3 weeks ago, she had been an honored guest. Now she was the accused defending her species' right to exist in galactic space. Grand Admiral Vorthak raises concerns about human capabilities and intentions, Kira began. I appreciate the opportunity to address these directly. She activated her own holographic display, showing images of Earth and human civilization. The Grand Admiral is correct that humans possess capabilities that many species lack. We are strong, resilient, and adaptable, but he fundamentally misunderstands why we developed these traits. The display showed Earth's extreme environments, hurricanes, earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, deadly wildlife. We evolved these abilities to survive on a hostile world, not to threaten others. Our strength comes from necessity, not aggression. Strength is strength, Vorthak interrupted. Regardless of its origin, it represents potential for violence. By that logic, Kira replied calmly, every species with any defensive capabilities should be banned from the Council. The Korthak have armored skin and natural weapons. The Voidlings can survive in hard vacuum. The Crystallites can focus energy through their bodies. Should all these species be excluded because they possess potentially dangerous abilities? The comparison made several delegates shift uncomfortably. Vorthak's argument, taken to its logical conclusion, would exclude most species from galactic civilization. The difference, Vorthak pressed, is scale. Human capabilities far exceed those of other species. And our responsibilities scale with our capabilities, Kira replied. The greater our strength, the greater our obligation to use it wisely. The rescue operation wasn't a demonstration of military might. It was an example of how we choose to use our abilities. Elder Zuayxthala's approval was evident in her mental emanations. Ambassador Chen makes a valid point. How a species chooses to use their abilities matters more than the abilities themselves. But the coalition wasn't finished. The economic delegate from their faction, a spider-like being whose species controlled significant trade routes, spoke next. Even if we accept that human intentions are currently peaceful, what about their long-term impact on galactic economics? Their physical capabilities give them massive advantages in manufacturing, mining, and construction. They could dominate entire economic sectors. The concern was more subtle but equally problematic. Economic fears often drove political decisions more than security concerns. "We're not interested in dominating anything," Kira replied. "We want to participate, to contribute, and to learn. Earth's resources are sufficient for our needs, and we're more interested in technology exchange than territorial expansion." "Easy words to speak now," the economic delegate replied. "But what about in a century? 2 centuries? When human populations grow and their resource needs change?" The futurist delegate, known for long-term thinking, joined the discussion. "This is a valid concern. Most species plan for geological timescales. What assurances can humanity provide about their long-term intentions?" It was a fair question, but an impossible one to answer definitively. No species could guarantee their behavior over geological time periods. Civilizations changed, evolved, and sometimes took unexpected directions. "The same assurances any species can provide," Kira said honestly. "We can share our current values, demonstrate our present behavior, and commit to working within whatever frameworks the Council establishes. But no species can guarantee their behavior over millennia." Exactly the problem. Vorthax seized on her words. Deathworlders are too dangerous to take such risks with. The debate was becoming circular, and Kira could see that logical arguments weren't going to be sufficient. The coalition's fears ran deeper than rational analysis could address. Commander Thex, who had been observing the proceedings, requested permission to speak. "Counselors, if I may offer a security perspective?" "Proceed, Commander," High Counselor Keth said. "I've worked closely with human personnel over the past 3 weeks," Thex began. "I've observed their procedures, their decision-making processes, and their interactions with other species. In my professional opinion, they represent an enhanced security asset rather than a threat." His statement surprised many delegates. Thex was known for his conservative approach to security matters. "Their rescue capabilities are unmatched," he continued. "Their medical knowledge has already improved our emergency response protocols. They've been transparent about their technology and cooperative in every interaction." "Commander Thex," Vorthax said coldly, "are you allowing personal relationships to cloud your professional judgment?" The accusation was a serious one in security circles. Thex's scales shifted to a deeper blue, a sign of controlled anger. "Grand Admiral, I'm providing an objective assessment based on 3 weeks of close observation. If you have evidence that contradicts my evaluation, please present it." The challenge hung in the air. Vorthax had been making accusations based on theoretical fears, while Thex was reporting on actual observed behavior. "Theoretical threats require preparation even without current evidence," Vorthax replied. But his argument was weakening. Elder Zhuaxthala decided to intervene. "Perhaps it's time for a practical demonstration. Ambassador Chun, would your people be willing to undergo a comprehensive evaluation by neutral observers?" "What kind of evaluation?" Kira asked carefully. "A joint mission," the elder explained. "Something that would allow multiple species to observe human capabilities and decision-making in a real-world situation." The suggestion intrigued many delegates. Instead of debating hypothetical scenarios, they could observe actual human behavior under controlled conditions. "What did you have in mind?" Kira asked. Before Elder Zhuaxthala could answer, the station administrator's voice echoed through the chamber. "Priority alert. Distress signal received from the Kepler Research Station. Multiple casualties reported. Standard rescue protocols insufficient." The timing was almost too perfect to believe. Another emergency situation requiring capabilities that normal galactic forces couldn't handle. "Details," High Counselor Keth demanded. "Kepler Station is conducting deep space research in the Void Nebula," the administrator reported. "They've suffered catastrophic decompression in their primary research section. 47 personnel are trapped in a section that's losing atmosphere and structural integrity." The tactical display showed the research station's position. It was located in one of the galaxy's most dangerous regions, surrounded by gravitational anomalies, radiation fields, and unstable spacetime distortions. Estimated time until total structural failure: 2 hours. The administrator continued. Standard rescue ships cannot operate safely in the Void Nebula's conditions. Elder Zyaxthala looked at Kira meaningfully. Ambassador, here is your opportunity to demonstrate human capabilities under neutral observation. Are your people willing to attempt this rescue under full galactic supervision? The implications were enormous. Success would prove humanity's value to galactic civilization. Failure could end their hopes of membership permanently. We'll need full technical data on the research station and the nebula conditions, Kira said without hesitation. You're willing to attempt this? High Counselor Keth asked with surprise. 47 beings are going to die unless someone helps them, Kira replied simply. Of course we're willing to try. Grand Admiral Vorthak stood quickly. This is exactly what I've been warning about. Reckless disregard for safety, charging into impossible situations. This proves Deathworlders can't be trusted to make rational decisions. Or, Elder Zyaxthala replied calmly. It proves that they value other beings' lives more than their own safety. Personally, I find that admirable rather than threatening. The debate might have continued, but the urgency of the situation demanded action. Lives hung in the balance while politicians argued about hypothetical risks. I propose a compromise, the neutral delegate announced. Allow the human rescue attempt, but under full observation by a mixed galactic team. If they succeed, we'll have evidence of their positive value. If they fail or exhibit problematic behavior, we'll have grounds for reconsideration. The proposal made sense to many delegates. It offered a practical test of human capabilities while providing safeguards against potential abuse. The observation team should include representatives from multiple factions, High Counselor Keth added. Coalition members, human supporters, and neutral parties. Agreed, Kira said immediately. Full transparency throughout the operation. Grand Admiral Vorthak looked frustrated. He had hoped to prevent human participation entirely, but the compromise at least gave him the opportunity to observe and potentially document problematic behavior. I'll personally lead the observation team, he announced. That's acceptable, Kira replied, though she suspected his observations would be less than objective. Very well, Elder Zyaxthala decided. Ambassador Chun, prepare your rescue operation. Grand Admiral Vorthak, assemble your observation team. We'll see what humanity is really made of under the most demanding circumstances. As the chamber began to empty, delegates hurrying to prepare for the mission, Kira felt the weight of history once again settling on her shoulders. In the next few hours, humanity would either prove its worth to the galaxy or lose its chance at joining galactic civilization forever. The stakes couldn't be higher, and the observers couldn't be more hostile. But 47 lives were counting on them, and that was all the motivation any human needed. Commander Thex approached her as she prepared to leave. Ambassador, for what it's worth, I believe your people will do the right thing. Thank you, Commander. That means more than you know. Just remember, he added quietly, Grand Admiral Vorthak isn't just observing. He's looking for reasons to exclude humanity from the galaxy. Be careful not to give him any ammunition. Kira nodded grimly. The rescue operation would be challenging enough without having to worry about hostile observers looking for any excuse to condemn her species. But the die was cast. Within hours, humanity would face its greatest test yet in the vast darkness of space, with the future of human galactic relations hanging in the balance. The Void Nebula awaited, and, with it, the destiny of 2 species, the 47 researchers who needed rescue, and the billions of humans whose future in the galaxy would be decided by what happened next. The journey to the Void Nebula aboard the observation vessel, Harmony's Light, was tense with unspoken expectations. Ambassador Kira Chun found herself in the unique position of being simultaneously the diplomatic representative of her species and a technical advisor for the rescue operation. The multi-species observation team watched her every move with intense scrutiny. Grand Admiral Vorthak had assembled an impressive group of observers. Each represented different aspects of galactic civilization that could be affected by human participation: military analysis, economic assessment, technological evaluation, and social impact study. They filled the ship's observation deck like a tribunal preparing to render judgment. Captain Zhang's voice crackled through the communication system from the human rescue vessel, Resilience, which was running parallel to their course. Ambassador, we're approaching the nebula's outer perimeter. Initial sensor readings confirm the intelligence reports. This is going to be challenging even by our standards. The main display showed the Void Nebula in all its terrifying beauty. Swirling clouds of exotic matter danced around gravitational anomalies that could crush a starship in seconds. Radiation levels fluctuated wildly as pockets of unstable elements underwent spontaneous decay. Space itself seemed twisted and unreliable here. Dr. Yexlara, the expedition's scientific observer, studied the readings with obvious amazement. Her crystalline body chimed softly as she processed the data. The gravitational variance alone should make navigation impossible. How do your people plan to operate in these conditions? Very carefully, Kira replied. Our ships are built to handle extreme conditions, and our crews train extensively for operations in hostile environments. Define extreme conditions, demanded General Korthax, the military observer whose armor-plated species was renowned for their toughness. Even he seemed awed by the nebulous dangers. Kira activated a holographic display showing Earth's most challenging environments. Deep ocean trenches with crushing pressure and toxic atmospheres. Volcanic regions with temperatures that melt most metals. Polar storms with wind speeds that can destroy conventional structures. Our ships are designed to handle conditions that would destroy most galactic vessels. The Economic Observer, a multi-armed being named Trader Vixlon, studied the technical specifications with calculating eyes. The resource investment required for such robust engineering must be enormous. How does your species justify such expenses? We don't think of it as expense, Kira replied. We think of it as insurance. When you live on a world that's constantly trying to kill you, over-engineering becomes a survival trait. Grand Admiral Vorthak had been listening intently to the exchanges. And these same survival traits give you military advantages that other species lack. Before Kira could respond, the Resilience's communication channel activated with urgent updates. Observation team, we're receiving detailed distress signals from Kepler Research Station. The situation is worse than initially reported. The main display updated with real-time data from the research station. What they saw made several observers step back in alarm. The station wasn't just suffering from decompression. Entire sections were being twisted and torn apart by gravitational shears that shouldn't have existed in this region of space. The research team was studying temporal anomalies, Captain Zhang reported. It appears their experiments destabilized local spacetime. The station is existing in multiple probability states simultaneously. Dr. Yexlara's chimes became discordant with shock. Probability state collapse? That's theoretical physics. If the station is experiencing temporal flux, then normal rescue protocols are completely useless. Worse than useless, General Korthax added grimly. Any ship that gets caught in those probability fields could cease to exist entirely. The magnitude of the challenge was becoming clear. This wasn't just a dangerous rescue operation. It was an impossible one by normal galactic standards. Trader Vixlon voiced what everyone was thinking. Perhaps this mission should be aborted. The risk-to-benefit ratio is completely unacceptable. 47 people are going to die, Kira said firmly. That makes the benefit calculation very simple from our perspective. Even if attempting rescue means potentially losing your own crew. Grand Admiral Vorthak asked. Especially then, Kira replied without hesitation. Our people knew the risks when they volunteered. The researchers didn't ask to be trapped in a probability maze. The human attitude toward acceptable risk continued to baffle the galactic observers. Most species calculated danger carefully and avoided unnecessary exposure. The willingness to enter a potentially lethal situation to help strangers seemed incomprehensible to them. Resilience to observation team. Captain Zhang's voice carried a new note of urgency. We're detecting life signs aboard the research station, but they're fluctuating. Some of the trapped personnel are phasing in and out of normal space-time. The technical display showed the disturbing readings. Life signs would appear, vanish, then reappear in different locations throughout the station. Some signatures showed as multiple overlapping entities, as if the same person existed in several probability states at once. This is beyond our understanding, Dr. Yexlara admitted. How can your people possibly navigate a rescue operation in conditions that defy normal physics? We improvise, Kira said simply. Humans are good at adapting to unexpected situations. Improvisation isn't sufficient for dealing with impossible physics, General Korthax pointed out. Maybe not, Kira conceded, but it's all we've got. Unless you have a better suggestion? The observers fell silent. None of their species had ever attempted anything like this before. Their advanced civilizations had achieved stability by avoiding exactly these kinds of unpredictable dangers. Beginning approach to the research station, Captain Zhang announced. Probability fields are significant. We're going to have to navigate by instruments that probably aren't designed for this kind of space-time distortion. The observation team watched through the main viewer as the Resilience approached the research station. The human ship seemed to flicker and blur as it passed through probability boundaries, sometimes appearing to exist in multiple locations simultaneously. How are they maintaining course? Dr. Yexlara asked with wonder. Manual navigation, came the reply from the Resilience. Sensors are giving us contradictory readings, so our pilots are flying by feel and experience. The concept of flying by feel through impossible physics made several observers question their understanding of human capabilities. Most galactic species relied heavily on technological aids for complex operations. Resilience, you're entering the primary distortion field, the observation ship's navigator warned. Our sensors show at least 6 different probability states in that region. Acknowledged, Captain Zhang replied calmly. We're seeing the same readings. Beginning multi-state navigation protocols. Multi-state navigation? Grand Admiral Vorthak demanded. What does that even mean? Kira found herself explaining concepts that she barely understood herself. Our crews are trained to operate when normal rules don't apply. They use intuition, pattern recognition, and distributed decision-making to handle situations that can't be analyzed conventionally. That sounds like guessing, Trader Vixlon observed. Educated guessing, Kira corrected, based on experience with chaotic systems and unpredictable environments. The Resilience had reached the research station, but the challenge was just beginning. The station existed in a constantly shifting,